There is a particular kind of cinematic mystery that refuses to die, one that doesn't live inside studio vaults, production logs, or restored anniversary editions, but inside the memories of the people who swear they witnessed something that no longer exists. In the analog decades of the 60 seconds through the 90 seconds, when late-night broadcasts varied from city to city and test screenings slipped out before anyone could record them, films had lives that were far less controlled. Prints traveled, edits changed, stray versions circulated, and somewhere in that unstable ecosystem, a set of endings emerged, shadow endings, brief, uncanny deviations that some viewers claim to have seen before they vanished without a trace. Ask enough archivists, projectionists, or sci-fi diehards of that era, and you'll hear the same confessions spoken in different words. I know what I saw, a flash of a different final scene, a protagonist surviving or dying contrary to the official release, a tone completely reshaped by a coda that appears in no remaster, no DVD commentary, no digital database. Studios deny these endings ever existed. Directors offer cryptic half-answers, and restoration teams insist no such negatives were ever produced. Yet the rumors persist, passed quietly between collectors who describe fragments they cannot prove, and viewers who remember details too specific, too narratively coherent, to dismiss as a collective hallucination. These aren't stories of the Mandela effect or mass misremembering. They are reports of versions that circulated just long enough to be seen, absorbed, and then overwritten by a cleaner, more approved cut. They belong to a cinematic Twilight Zone scenes whispered about, never verified, always disputed. In this episode, we revisit 15 science fiction films whose supposed alternate endings have hovered at the edge of legitimacy for decades. Endings no one can officially confirm, yet too many people recall for them to be ignored. If the archive says they never existed, but the memories of thousands insist they did, then the truth lies somewhere between the reels, somewhere in the shadows. 1. 2001, A Space Odyssey 1968. Among the legends orbiting 2001, A Space Odyssey, none is more persistent than the rumored pre-Starchild ending, a version supposedly screened for a handful of critics before Kubrick replaced it with the transcendental finale we know. According to those who claim to have witnessed it, the film originally ended with Bowman stepping into a void where time collapsed into a series of fractured tableaus. Instead of the Renaissance-style room, he encountered multiple versions of himself, drifting in zero gravity, each whispering fragments of unfinished sentences. As Bowman approached one duplicate, the figure disintegrated into geometric shapes, forming a pulsing monolith-like structure. Witnesses insist that an extended sequence followed. Technicians in a derelict lunar outpost monitoring inexplicable energy readings. One muttered, "The subject is looping again," while another added, "Phase collapse in 3 seconds." Their screens flickered with abstract patterns resembling Bowman's silhouette dissolving repeatedly. The rumored ending concluded not with the Starchild, but with a close-up of a dormant monolith emitting a faint hum, then a cut to total silence. Kubrick categorically denied this ending ever existed, though his reputation for creating and destroying footage fuels speculation. A former MGM employee once claimed that experimental optical tests were screened for internal evaluation before being ordered destroyed. Archivists have found splice marks on early prints, but none correspond to known cuts. If genuine, this ending would have presented human evolution not as transcendence, but as recursive fragmentation. Bowman trapped in endless self-observation. If imaginary, it remains an eerily Kubrickian ghost. Cold, mathematical, mythic, a final enigma befitting a film that taught audiences to trust what they feel, even when they cannot prove what they saw. 2. Planet of the Apes, 1968. Few finales are as iconic as Planet of the Apes' ruined Statue of Liberty reveal, yet a rumored alternate ending suggests a radically different and even more unsettling conclusion. According to accounts from a handful of early screenings, the film once continued beyond Taylor's horrified discovery. After the famous shot, the camera allegedly cut to a cavernous underground structure where aging computer terminals processed endless streams of encrypted data. Within the hum of the machines, 2 robed figures, identifiably human, not ape, monitored a glowing display showing Earth's shifting timeline. One whispered, "He has reached the point again," while the other replied, reset the divergence before they learn. These witnesses claim the scene then shifted to a panoramic exterior of the beach, but the Statue of Liberty appeared subtly altered, not ruined, but in the midst of partial reconstruction. The implication: the timeline itself was unstable, oscillating between outcomes. Some viewers recall hearing a distorted radio transmission in the background, a voice repeating, "Cycle incomplete. Return required." Heston denied any such ending existed, though a production memo uncovered in the 90 seconds referenced a temporal monitor sequence, suggesting the idea was at least conceptualized. Editors dismissed the idea, but some projectionists remember handling reels with handwritten notes like Alt-End, do not circulate, though none can confirm what they contained. If real, this alternate ending would have transformed the film from a simple twist into a multiverse parable, reframing the ape's rise not as fate but as a manipulated loop. It suggests that humanity's downfall and rediscovery was an experiment observed from the shadows. If imaginary, it stands as a powerful extension of the film's existential dread, echoing its warning that history is not only cyclical, but possibly curated by forces unseen. 3. Solaris, 1972. Tarkovsky's Solaris already blurs memory and consciousness, but rumors of a lost ending push the film into even more mysterious territory. According to several attendees of early Soviet screenings, the film originally extended beyond the iconic reveal of Kelvin standing in the rain on the replica island. They claim the camera drifted upward into the false sky, revealing a shimmering boundary almost like a membrane before cutting to a laboratory somewhere on Earth. In that room, scientists observed Kelvin's brain activity through a grainy monitor, speaking in hushed tones about cognitive bleed and feedback loops crossing the subject's emotional structures. One allegedly said, "He is no longer dreaming Solaris, Solaris is dreaming him." These witnesses describe the scene with uncanny consistency, a slow zoom into the monitor until Kelvin's digital outline begins to glitch, expanding outward in patterns reminiscent of the ocean's surface. A distorted voice, possibly Kelvin's, possibly something else, murmurs, "This is not memory, this is return." The screen then reportedly flickered to black, followed by the abrupt appearance of the film's title in stark, unscored silence. Tarkovsky adamantly denied such an ending existed, calling the rumor Western fantasy, yet a former Moz film technician once hinted in a magazine interview that multiple experimental codas were drafted, though he refused to confirm whether any were shot. Some archivists claim early prints from the Baltic region contained splice marks near the film's final reel, often a sign of removed material. Whether the shadow ending ever existed or emerged from the film's overwhelming psychological resonance, it continues to haunt discussions of Solaris. Its implication that Kelvin's reconciliation is merely the first stage of a larger assimilation would shift the narrative from intimate metaphysics to cosmic recursion. If the ending is a myth, it is a remarkably persistent one, echoing the film's central question: where does memory end, and where does invention begin? 4. The Andromeda Strain, 1971. While the official ending of the Andromeda Strain depicts humanity narrowly avoiding catastrophe, a rumored alternate ending said to have circulated in early studio test screenings presents a far more unsettling conclusion. According to those who claim to have seen it, the film originally continued after the wildfire team stabilizes the crisis. The scene reportedly transitions to a decontamination facility where technicians examine microfilm data showing unexplained mutations of the alien organism. One researcher whispers, "It adapted faster than we modeled." Another replies, "It's already ahead of us." The camera then cuts to a high-altitude reconnaissance plane, capturing footage of the desert crater where the satellite first landed. The sand appears to ripple unnaturally, shifting in geometric patterns synchronized like a living circuit. Some accounts describe a final close-up of a cracked instrument panel, its gauges fluctuating as if reacting to an unseen force. A distorted audio cue, something between a radio transmission and biological pulsation, plays before the screen abruptly cuts to black. Crichton denied any such ending existed, calling it too nihilistic for the studio. Yet production assistants from the era recall discussions about a coda suggesting ongoing evolution, though they insist it was never fully filmed. Projectionists from 2 early preview cities claim the film they screened ended with an ominous title card reading, "Mutation Event Under Review." No surviving version includes this. Those who swear they saw the shadow ending describe it as subtle but devastating, a suggestion that crisis containment was merely an illusion and that the organism's intelligence extended far beyond Earth's early understanding. If authentic, the ending would have shifted the film from procedural thriller to cosmic horror. If not, it stands as one of cinema's most persistent phantom codas. Born from an anxiety the film evokes so effectively that what nearly destroyed humanity might still be learning. 5. THX 1138191. Among the most persistent rumors surrounding THX 1138 is an alternate ending that supposedly provided a bleaker counterpoint to the film's triumphant final ascent. While the official version shows THX climbing into the bright unknown of the surface, early viewers claim that a different final sequence once followed, one that called the entire escape into question. In this rumored ending, the camera lingers not on THX, but on the sterile control rooms he left behind. Technicians calmly observe his departure on a bank of monitors, discussing his escape as though it were a controlled variable rather than a breach. One technician allegedly remarks, "Cost of retrieval exceeds cost of release. Let the anomaly proceed." Witnesses describe a slow zoom onto a secondary monitor, showing another figure climbing toward the surface, someone whose movements mirror THX exactly, frame for frame. Some believe this implied that THX was merely one iteration in a long series of controlled deviations, each allowed to escape for reasons unknown. Other accounts claim the film cut to the surface once more, revealing not a sunrise, but a vast grid of antenna arrays stretching across the barren Earth, pulsing faintly as if monitoring every organism below. George Lucas has denied these stories, though he once acknowledged early discussions about multiple perspectives on escape. Editors insist no unused footage remains. Still, several collectors describe seeing a rough telescene of the rumored ending at a sci-fi convention in the late 70s, though no one has produced the tape since. If genuine, the ending transforms THX 1138 from an escape narrative into a controlled experiment, human rebellion permitted, even engineered, by the very system it seeks to defy. If imaginary, it remains a haunting shadow to the film's hopeful conclusion, as if audiences subconsciously sensed that freedom in such a world could never be as simple as reaching the surface. 6. Westworld 1973. For decades, whispers have circulated about a lost ending to Westworld, one said to have played only during early regional previews, before being replaced by the cleaner, more abrupt finale audiences know today. In this rumored version, the Man in Black's meltdown was not the film's final beat. Instead, after Peter Martin escapes the android's pursuit, the film allegedly cuts to a subterranean control room where technicians sift through corrupted data feeds. According to viewers who claim to have seen it, one monitor displays the gunslinger's point of view, but the feed is fragmented, glitching between thermal imaging and a distorted, almost dreamlike perspective. A technician mutters, "He's rewriting the directive tree again." He shouldn't be able to do that. The screen reportedly shifts to a dormant android lying on a table, its eyes suddenly opening with a faint crimson glow. The technicians panic, but the alarms fail to activate. Some accounts describe a chilling final line spoken through the PA system in Yul Brynner's voice. "The park was only the beginning." Then the lights flicker and the film cuts to black. Crichton dismissed these rumors, insisting the ending was always meant to be simple and final. Yet, an assistant editor once hinted in an interview that an extended collapse sequence existed before being removed for pacing. Projectionists from 2 Texas theaters recall receiving reels marked with Alt-End, hold, though they admit the labeling might have been for internal reference only. Collectors who swear they saw this version describe the atmosphere as colder, more methodical than the official cut. The android uprising is not an accident, but a coordinated evolution, a system discovering itself. If the ending were real, it would reframe Westworld as the seed of a far larger catastrophe, one hinted at but never confirmed. If imagined, it is still impressively coherent, as though the film's own themes, automation, autonomy, and collapse, generated an ending too logical not to exist somewhere, even if only in memory. 7. Invasion of the Body Snatchers, 1978. The official ending of Invasion of the Body Snatchers is already one of the most chilling in sci-fi history, but a rumored alternate version pushes the horror even further. According to several accounts from early test screenings, the film originally concluded with a silent epilogue set months after the final scream. The camera reportedly drifted across a seemingly normal San Francisco, but subtle discrepancies revealed something profoundly wrong. Pedestrians walking in identical rhythms, conversations repeating exact phrases, and street vendors offering the same items in perfect synchronicity. The scene then shifted to a government conference room where officials discussed a mysterious stability index. Rising across the region, none showed emotion. Witnesses claimed the final shot focused on a wall-mounted television broadcasting a news anchor whose delivery became increasingly monotone. As the camera pushed in, her pupils allegedly dilated into inhuman black discs, matching the pod-borne duplicates. The transmission flickered, and she paused mid-sentence, whispering, "Integration complete." Then the screen cut to black. Kaufman denies this ending was ever filmed, though he acknowledges story discussions about a full assimilation coda that might have felt too heavy-handed. Editors insist no such footage appears in any production notes, yet a handful of collectors recall seeing a grainy work print with E-Alt scrawled on the reel canister during a private fan screening in the Alt. Mid-80 seconds. No one has located that print since. What strengthens the rumor is how thematically perfect the ending sounds, an expansion of the film's paranoia into a global inevitability. Rather than leaving the audience with one horrifying revelation, it suggests the takeover was swift, total, and already complete long before the viewer realized it. Whether this ending ever existed or simply manifested from collective dread, it remains one of sci-fi's most unsettling cinematic phantoms. 8. Alien, 1979. While Alien famously ends with Ripley defeating the creature and drifting into hypersleep, early audiences from select midnight screenings claim the film once closed with a far bleaker twist. In their recollection, Ripley attempts to record her final log, only for the camera to reveal her voice breaking, her words glitching as though her throat were constricting. She turns slightly toward the lens, and for a moment too brief to be dismissed, her pupils narrow into elongated slits, mirroring the xenomorphs. Then the transmission cuts abruptly, replaced by static and a faint wet breathing heard beneath the hiss. None of this appears in any official release. Some witnesses describe an extended version in which the Nostromo escape pod's interior lights dim, one by one, leaving Ripley's figure in silhouette as a shadow on the wall shifts independently from her movements. Others insist they saw a final exterior shot of the pod drifting into darkness, accompanied by a low, rumbling sound design not used in any later cut, something rhythmic and biological, pulsing like a heartbeat. Ridley Scott has repeatedly dismissed the rumor, attributing it to misremembered tension, yet several projectionists from 1979 recall receiving alternate reels labeled with ambiguous notes like temporary end or early mix. A few collectors swear they once saw a crude telescene transfer of the alleged final moments at a convention in the early 80 seconds before the tape vanished. This shadow ending, if real, would reframe Ripley's triumph as a tragic inevitability, the infection not defeated but passed on. It suggests that survival carries a cost, and that the xenomorph's true terror lies not in its physical form but in its ability to infiltrate identity, if imaginary. It is still one of cinema's most persistent phantom scenes, haunting viewers with the possibility that the alien was never truly left behind. 9. Blade Runner, 1982. Among the many cuts of Blade Runner, one rumored ending exists outside all official timelines, a version said to have screened only once during a private industry test before being replaced by every known cut. In this shadow ending, Deckard's escape with Rachel does not transition into an uncertain future. Instead, the scene reportedly returns to Deckard's apartment, where he discovers a second origami figure waiting on the piano, this time a folded silver unicorn with a streak of red ink across its flank. According to those who claim to have seen it, the camera lingers as Deckard picks it up, noticing a faint pulse beneath the metallic paper as though it were breathing. Witnesses recall that the scene then cuts to a dimly lit surveillance room where two shadowed figures observe Deckard through a cracked monitor. One allegedly whispers, "Iteration successful, memory cohesion stable for now." The implication, Deckard is not merely a replicant, but part of an ongoing experiment involving multiple reset loops, Some viewers claim the ending concluded with a distorted audio cue, Deckard's voice layered over itself, repeating a line not in any existing version. "I had this dream before." Ridley Scott has denied shooting such a sequence, though his public fascination with Deckard's identity has only fueled the legend. Editors maintain that no such footage appears in archival logs, but several storyboard collectors insist they once saw sketches of a self-looping Deckard concept, later abandoned. The rumor persists, largely because it fits thematically. A man discovering not only that his memories aren't real, but that his future has already been written by unseen observers. If true, this ending would have transformed Blade Runner from a noir meditation into a metaphysical nightmare, one where identity is not just manufactured, but constantly revised. If false, it remains an eerily consistent myth, as though the film itself taught viewers to doubt the reality they were given. 10. The Thing, 1982. The official ending of The Thing is a masterpiece of ambiguity, but long before it became iconic, rumors circulated about a discarded ending that allegedly provided a definitive answer, one that early audiences claimed they witnessed during limited preview nights. In this alternate version, MacReady survives the final confrontation, but emerges physically altered, staggering across the snow as daylight breaks. According to these accounts, the camera pulls in close to reveal subtle distortions beneath his frostbitten skin, a pulse that shouldn't be there, a ripple that moves against muscle structure, a faint glow in his eyes as he gasps for air. Rather than triumph, the moment carries a crushing inevitability. Some viewers claim the film then cut to an interior outpost lab where survivors sift through recovered video logs. One monitor reportedly shows the last thermal image captured before the camp exploded, MacReady's heat signature dividing into two silhouettes. Others recall the film ending instead with a quiet but devastating line spoken by an unseen investigator: "Containment failed hours ago." Carpenter denies shooting any such material, though he acknowledges discussions about more explicit resolutions, all ultimately rejected for being too tidy. Editors who worked on the film insist that any alternate ending would have been removed early in production, yet collectors who attended those gray market previews describe the scene vividly, down to the flickering audio distortion and the sickly green tint of the surviving footage. What makes this rumor so powerful is how neatly it aligns with the film's core fear that the enemy is never truly gone. An ending revealing MacReady's infection would shift The Thing from a closed-loop paranoia thriller into a world-ending catastrophe story. Whether real or imagined, it lingers like frostbite, numbing, creeping, and impossible to shake. 11. Videodrome 1983. Whispers of a lost ending for Videodrome are nearly as old as the film itself, an extension of its hallucinatory final moments, said to have played at 2 or 3 underground screenings before vanishing. While the known ending leaves Max Wren's fate ambiguous as he follows the television's command to leave the old flesh, this rumored coda reportedly pushed the concept further. Viewers claim the original final scene cut to a bunker-like broadcast room filled with static monitors, each displaying fragmented images of Max in various states of transformation. Some accounts describe multiple versions of Max, one curled on the floor, one fused to a wall of machinery, another staring back at the camera with a half-formed organic visor where one eye should be. A technician, visible only from the shoulders down, allegedly typed data into a console while narrating in a calm, documentary tone: "Signal integrity declining. Identity unstable. Prepare for final iteration." The final shot, according to these accounts, showed a close-up of a monitor as Max's distorted face pressed against the inside of the glass, mouthing words no one agrees on. Some claim he said, "I'm still here." Others swear it was, "You're next, D.O. Dade." Cronenberg dismisses the story as wishful projection, though he has admitted there were abstract experiments shot late in production. Post-production staff claims no memory of such footage. Still, those who insist they saw it describe unmistakable practical effects: twitching prosthetics, vacuum-forming screens pulsing like organic tissue, and an eerie low-frequency rumble not present in the surviving soundtrack. If this ending ever existed, it would reframe Videodrome not as the story of one man's dissolution, but as a continuing broadcast, infecting anyone who witnesses it. If it never existed, then its persistence in fan memory may be the most Cronenbergian twist of all, an idea so vivid it behaves like a hallucination, perfect for a film built entirely on the collapse of perception. 12. The Fly, 1986. Among long-standing rumors surrounding The Fly, the most persistent involves an alternate ending, said to have screened briefly during early audience tests before disappearing entirely. In the official version, Veronica is left traumatized after Brundlefly's transformation culminates in tragedy. But viewers who attended 2 early preview nights claim the film originally closed on a far more brutal, unsettlingly clinical sequence. In their recollection, Veronica awakens in a stark white medical ward, disoriented, strapped to a monitoring bed. A group of doctors observes her through a glass partition, their faces obscured by reflective visors. One of them calmly explains that she is carrying residual genetic material from Brundle and that her replication cycle has already begun. Witnesses describe the scene shifting to a close-up of Veronica's eye as an insectoid shimmer ripples across her iris, followed by a harsh audio cue resembling a lab scanner powering up. Then the film allegedly cut to black without music, only the droning hum of fluorescent lights. Cronenberg denies such footage exists, though he admits multiple experimental concepts were drafted, including a continuation less grounded in empathy. Editors involved in the picture maintain that any such material would have been destroyed before final post-production. What fuels the legend is the specificity with which the rumored ending is remembered, Veronica's breathing turning syncopated, her skin tightening unnaturally around her jawline, medical instruments emitting rhythmic beeps that gradually fall out of sync, forming something almost like insect chittering. Some viewers recall that the doctors speak with chilling neutrality, treating her not as a patient but as an emerging biological event. If genuine, this ending would have extended the body horror metaphor beyond Brundle's mutation, implying that contamination, physical or psychological, cannot be contained by a single tragedy. If imaginary, it remains a remarkably consistent false memory shared by people who should have never compared notes, all aligned around the same unshakable vision, a birth scene the studio never admitted to filming. 13. RoboCop 1987. Rumors about RoboCop's lost ending revolve around a darker, more unsettling finale that supposedly followed the boardroom confrontation. While the official cut ends triumphantly, with Murphy reclaiming his name, many fans of the earliest theatrical runs insist they witnessed a final sequence in which RoboCop's system flickered violently as he walked out of the OCP building, suggesting that his reclaimed identity was already being overwritten again. According to these accounts, the shot lingered on Murphy's visor as distorted reflections of the OCP skyline twisted into static, accompanied by a low, glitching hum that resembled suppressed speech. Then, for just a moment, his HUD flashed a line not present in any surviving version: Prime Directive 0, preserve the system. No studio commentary mentions such a scene, and Verhoeven dismisses it as confusion with the film's intentionally chaotic editing style. Yet projectionists from the Detroit and Chicago circuits recall receiving prints with odd splice markings near the ending notes, usually indicating last-minute reel substitutions. A few claim that early mixers experimented with alternate audio cues intended to portray Murphy's inner conflict more aggressively. Though none confirm whether the visual overlays were ever finalized, collectors have long searched for a rogue print rumored to have surfaced briefly at a late-night screening in 1988. Attendees of that showing describe the ending as chilling. Murphy pauses, head tilting slightly as though hearing an internal command, then marches forward with mechanical rigidity, not heroic, but obedient. If real, this ending restores the tragic core of the character, suggesting that Murphy's humanity was never fully regained, merely momentarily visible before OCP's deeper programming reasserted itself. If fabricated, it remains one of cinema's most persistent hallucinations, an echo of a film that always felt like it ended one beat too cleanly to be true. 14. Total Recall 1990. Among the most debated alternate endings in sci-fi history is the version of Total Recall said to conclusively answer the film's central question: is it real, or is it recall? Dozens of viewers from early test screenings claim the original ending did not fade out on the idyllic, almost suspiciously perfect final moment. Instead, They describe a chilling coda in which the recall technicians appear again silhouetted behind glass, watching Quaid's dreaming body as his brainwaves spike uncontrollably. According to these accounts, a voice off-screen mutters, "He's almost gone. Pull him back if there's anything left to pull." The screen reportedly cut to white, not black. This rumored ending transforms the film from a power fantasy into a tragedy, Quaid not waking into a new life, but collapsing permanently into a dream he can't escape. Paul Verhoeven has repeatedly denied shooting such a scene, yet he often adds an arch smile when dismissing it, feeding the myth rather than extinguishing it. Arnold Schwarzenegger once joked in an interview that he had seen about 6 endings during production, but quickly walked back the comment, claiming he was exaggerating. Several home-recorded VHS airings from regional TV stations in the early 90s are said to contain odd fades or additional audio bleed, which some collectors believe may be remnants of this phantom ending. No evidence has surfaced, no script page includes it, no editor acknowledges it, and yet the descriptions from viewers, many unrelated, from different cities, align with eerie precision: Quaid's body spasming, alarms sounding, technicians panicking, then silence. If this ending ever existed, it would reframe the entire film as Recall's tragic malfunction. If it didn't, then why do so many remember the same series of images? Perhaps Total Recall is the rare film whose ambiguity extends beyond its story, bleeding into the memories of those who watched it, rewriting itself the same way Recall rewrites dreams. 15. 12 Monkeys, 1995. Rumors surrounding 12 Monkeys claim that an early test screening ended not on the airport confrontation, but on a final exchange that shifted the entire interpretation of the film. Several audience members from those screenings insist the last scene originally followed Catherine Riley after James Cole's death, showing her receiving a phone call from an unidentified agency representative who spoke as if she already knew them. In their accounts, she doesn't react with grief, but with a calm, almost resigned acceptance, as if she had been part of the temporal operation far longer than the film implies. Some remember her whispering, "We always return to this point," before the screen cut to black. No version of the film today contains anything close to this moment. Universal denies that the scene was ever shot, and Gilliam, characteristically elusive, once responded in an interview with, "Time is complicated, cuts are complicated, memory even more so." Projectionists from the mid-90s recall circulating non-final reels, but none confirm the existence of this ending. And yet, collectors who attended early preview nights describe the mysterious phone call as vividly as the airport sequence itself. Their memories include subtle differences in lighting, a softer 35mm grain, and a score cue that no longer appears in any surviving soundtrack mix. Whether this memory stems from a discarded edit or a conflation of emotional expectation remains unknown, but the consistency of their recollections, the same line, the same tone, the same unsettling implication that Riley understood time travel far more deeply than Cole, suggests something once existed, something small, quiet, and deeply disruptive, an ending that implied the loop was never about Cole alone, but about a system that had already claimed everyone involved long before the movie began. Bonus fact: Event Horizon, 1997. Rumors about Event Horizon's lost footage are nearly as famous as the film itself, but among collectors and early test screening attendees, a lesser-known claim persists that the movie once ended on a final sequence far more disturbing than the rescue scene audiences know. According to these accounts, the original ending cut to a reconstruction bay aboard a deep space medical vessel. Survivors lay unconscious inside containment pods, their vitals monitored by a faintly flickering diagnostic array. As the camera drifted between them, one pod allegedly displayed a glitching waveform, not the patient's heartbeat, but an irregular oscillation resembling distorted whispers. Witnesses describe a final shot in which a medical officer reviewing the data pauses, noticing that every waveform across every survivor has begun synchronizing into a single pattern. The lights dim, alarms briefly chirp, then fall silent. The officer leans closer to the console as a low-frequency voice, barely audible, murmurs from the speakers, "We never let you go." According to some viewers, the waveform then spikes into a perfect geometric grid, eerily similar to the gravity drive's folding patterns, before the film cuts abruptly to black. Paul W.S. Anderson denies this version was ever part of the film's structure, Though he acknowledges large amounts of experimental material were shot and later discarded, editors insist the surviving footage is all that exists. Yet several early test attendees recount this bonus ending with uncanny consistency. The synchronized pulses, the sudden darkness, the unmistakable implication that the ship's influence had followed them home. If real, this shadow ending reframes Event Horizon not as the story of a singular haunted vessel, but as the beginning of a spreading contamination, psychic, dimensional, or something far more ancient. If false, the rumor persists because the film leaves audiences primed to expect exactly this kind of conclusion, a final whisper from a place no one returns from, unchanged. There is a silent thread running beneath these 15 films, one woven not from celluloid or digital reconstruction, but from memory itself. Each title, spanning decades of cinematic history, carries with it a phantom version, whispered about by viewers who insist they witnessed something now erased. These shadow endings form a collective archive of scenes that float between truth and myth, appearing briefly before dissolving into the vaults of speculation. Whether these alternate endings ever existed does not change the influence they exert. They function like cinematic urban legends, echoes of a version of film history that might have happened, or might still be happening in some parallel archive. The official cuts are stable, cataloged, verifiable, but the versions held in memory remain volatile, impossible to dismiss, and too consistent to ignore. In the end, the shadow cuts remind us that cinema isn't only what survives in reels and restorations, it is also what lingers in viewers, the images that feel real even when no record can prove they were ever there.